not to hear the Texas challenge to the election results out of the 4 states in question, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Here's President Trump.
But no judge has had the courage, including the Supreme Court. I am so disappointed in them. No judge, including the Supreme Court of the United States, has had the courage to allow it to be heard. The Supreme Court, all they did is say, we don't have standing. So they're saying essentially that the President of the United States and Texas and these other states, great states, they don't have standing.
And today, of course, is the date at which the electors in the 50 states meet, some virtually, and ostensibly will cast their ballots consistent with where the popular vote stands in their respective states. There's no indication anything other than that will occur. Steve Scalise, House Minority Whip, was on with Chris Wallace yesterday, and he was asked about today. Is today the end of it then, when the electors vote?
There's going to ultimately be a conclusion to this, but for now, I think if you just discount the fact that millions of people wonder why is it that in some states, Florida, Texas, large states, they had the results by 10 o'clock that night. And then in other states, it was days and weeks. And during those days and weeks, you saw massive vote swings that just seed a lot of distrust. That's got to get resolved.
Chris Wallace putting this question to to Steve Scalise, who was there, but also to the 126 Republicans, including House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who signed on to the Texas lawsuit in support of it, and the 17 states as well.
I mean, you were talking about disenfranchising the 10 million Biden voters who supported the president-elect in those 4 states. Do you feel comfortable throwing out millions of votes of your fellow Americans?
Well, do you? And Eric Swalwell, no less, tweeting out, it's official. GOP leader McCarthy cemented his role in history next to Confederate leader Jefferson Davis. He fought the will of the American people and lost. Setting aside the hilarity of the Chi-Com's Mata Hari's boyfriend labeling others enemy of the Republic, enemies of the Republic.
Your tweet.
We're pleased to be joined for more on this by, I guess, somebody who, Eric Swalwell, the distinguished congressman from California, would call the Jefferson Davis as well. He is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, retired U.S. Army lieutenant, former congressman from Florida, and he is the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Colonel West, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's good to be with you, Dan and Amy, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and to your family. And Eric Swalwell, and I guess I assume other Democrats as well, characterizing you as trying to circumvent the will of the people, being seditionists, essentially.
Well, I find that very interesting in that if you look at the preamble of the Constitution where it talks about we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union. And so the more perfect union was based upon us having a constitution of rule of law. And so if you want to talk about the true secessionists, if you want to talk about the real seditionists, it's those people that are undermining the rule of law in the United States of America. And that's what the Texas lawsuit was all about, that was joined by 17, 18 other states, 106 members of Congress, was to say that we cannot have states such as Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin that are going out and conducting illegal actions, activities, unconstitutional actions. You cannot have courts that are changing election law, secretaries of state or governors changing election law, implementing things such as universal mail-in ballots because a quote-unquote emergency pandemic does not suspend the rule of law, does not suspend the Constitution, and then have no consequences. And therefore, you do have damages to the states that are law-abiding, that follow the Constitution. And under the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Under the Law Clause, that is why Texas and those other states came together and brought a petition for redress of their grievances to the only court that can adjudicate between states, and that's the Supreme Court. Sadly, the Supreme Court abdicated its roles, responsibilities, its enumerated duties under the Constitution to interpret the law.
And with respect to the question that Chris Wallace asked, were you ready to set aside, you were seriously ready to set aside 10 million people who voted for Joe Biden in those 4 states? I guess the response would be, no, that's not what was sought. What was sought is to set aside improper votes, not legitimate votes, number one, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thrust of the Texas lawsuit.
Well, then also it shows the ignorance and the incompetence of Chris Wallace, because the Texas lawsuit did not say casting out or throwing away any ballots. What it did say was that the decision on the electors should go back to the state legislatures, which is constitutional. It is in Article 2, Section 1. It's called the Electors Clause. So I think that we need to get back to teaching history and civics in the United States of America, not just to our kids in school, but also to some adults.
Right.
Particularly those on news desks. Yes, right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What can you do now? What can the state of Texas and the other 18 states that joined this lawsuit do?
Well, I have heard there's some ruminations about refining language and resubmitting it. I think that's what Justice Alito spoke towards, and it is very interesting that you had those two stalwart constitutionalists, Justices Alito and Thomas, dissenting against their own Supreme Court and the decision that they made to not take up this case. And I think the other thing is what I said, is that law-abiding states need to protect themselves. If law-abiding states cannot depend upon the Constitution and the Supreme Court to properly execute their enumerated duty, which in this case was to hear the states who have been damaged by other states, then something has to happen for those law-abiding states. We don't want to see this constitutional republic descend to a place where states can just go out and do whatever they want. And to go back to what Mr. Swalwell talked about, that's really what happened with the Civil War. Was a group of states decided that they would do what they want and not honor and believe that individuals were created equal and that they had life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's why I see these states that are not following the Constitution, they're the real secessionists in this case.
And so when you say, which is a version of what you said in the statement that you issued, perhaps law-abiding states should bond together and form a union of states that will abide the Constitution. What do you have in mind?
Well, I have in mind exactly what the Founding Fathers said in the preamble to the Constitution. Was we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. They created the Constitution. And that Constitution is supposed to make us a more perfect union. Those who do not follow the Constitution are the ones that are damaging this union. And so these states, such as what you saw with Texas in the 1718 to join together, they've got to protect themselves against the tyranny, the totalitarianism, the absolutism, the unconstitutional actions of a few states. And that's what we have to try to solve, because this is a major issue for our constitutional republic in the future going forward. If the Supreme Court does not want to adjudicate between states, then how do we resolve these issues?
Well, obviously you can have sort of states that are similarly disposed in terms of the leadership to sort of act in concert with one another, collaboratively, like you had here with the suit. The other thing, it seems to me, would be states where you have Republican-controlled state legislatures in places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, tightening up Georgia, tightening up their elections and not allowing administrative bodies to expand definitions, expand deadlines, and all the things that happened this election.
You're absolutely right. And again, that goes back to what the Texas lawsuit said, is that the decision for the electors, because of these unconstitutional acts that were done by the courts in these states and also executives in these states, being it the Secretary of State or the governors, such as in Georgia, where the Secretary of State sent the consent decree out that said that you don't have to verify signatures on these mail-in ballots, when the South Carolina Democrat Party had just tried to enact the same thing, and the Supreme Court ruled against the South Carolina Democrat Party. So why would not the Supreme Court speak in this matter as well when we talked about George and what he did with that consent decree? So yes, these state legislatures must now, when they go back into session, tighten up their election laws, and that's one of the things that we're looking to have. Election integrity is our number one legislative priority for the upcoming Texas 87th legislative session.
And what do you make about, the mail-in ballots? I mean, do you think we should put a rein on that and some restrictions on it moving forward to have more secure elections?
Yeah, you absolutely have to. And if you go back to April the 14th of this year in Time magazine, Eric Holder, who was the chairman of the National Democrat Redistricting Committee, wrote a piece that said how coronavirus should permanently change elections in the United States. And what did he talk about? Universal mail-in ballots. If you're in the military, such as I was for 22 years, we understand absentee balloting. But to just go out and mail out 2.4 to 2.7 million ballots like the Democrat county clerk in Harris County here in Texas attempted to do, we shot that down here in Texas. That's a violation of our election law. So I think that all states need to start looking at how they strengthen those election laws and make sure that they define specifically what is absentee balloting and not this universal mail-in balloting, which was the problem in Pennsylvania.
Your former colleague in the House, Mo Brooks from Alabama, is suggesting that January 6th is an important date, too. That's when Congress gets to tally the votes, and that's the constitutional responsibility of Congress. And if he can enlist at least one senator to challenge the electors, to challenge the legitimacy of the count, then perhaps this gets thrown to the House. That seems to be what he is intent on pursuing. Would you sign on to that? Is that a judicious play by Representative Brooks?
I think so, and I will sign on to anything that's constitutionally based because our founding fathers put into our system all of these checks and balances to make sure that we don't have exactly what we see happening in the United States of America right now, and we need to enact all of those checks and balances.
Just a question about Texas, because, it's one of those states that everybody's moving to, like your former home state of Florida. There's 2 states. I mean, there's a few others, obviously, but with redistricting afoot in advance of 2022, we're going to see Texas and Florida gain congressmen, and places like New York, California, Illinois lose congressmen. And a lot of the worry, the handle is, and this played out a little bit this cycle, is because of the flight from catastrophically run blue states to more well-run, more opportunity-laden red states like Texas and Florida and South Carolina and Georgia and Arizona. They're going to turn those states blue. They're bringing their voting habits with them. I'm not so sure that's true because I place a lot more emphasis on political culture, and I think we saw that play out in part in Texas this time. But as the Republican Party chairman, give us your of the state of Texas, give us your perspective on the sort of future of Texas electorally. Is this going to be a reliably red state 5, 10, 15 years from now?
I believe it will be a reliably red state, and the reason why is the fastest growing demographic in Texas is the Hispanic community. And what did you see from the Hispanic community in this past election cycle? You saw the Rio Grande Valley flip red to the point where it brought about the chagrin of Barack Obama, who attacked Hispanics for voting their principles and values and not just continuing to blindly go along with the Democrat Party. This was a reason in this election cycle why it was so important to hold on to our state legislatures. Eric Holder, Barack Obama, tens of millions of dollars, Michael Bloomberg as well, to try to flip state legislatures so that they could control the redistricting process. Texas will pick up 2, maybe 3 new congressional districts, but we have Republicans in control of those redistricting lines, so Texas will stay a good, strong conservative state for the next 10 years.
And for those mail-in ballots that I can't stand, Texas did it right because didn't they count them as they were coming in? Unlike Pennsylvania, they started counting all the mail-in ballots at 7 a.m. on Election Day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And another thing that we're very happy about here in Texas was that our Secretary of State last year did not certify the Dominion voting system because it had issues with security.
Right, that's right.
That's important. I forgot about that.
He is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. He is harder to kill than Steven Seagal. He survived that terrible motorcycle accident, which we appreciate. Thank goodness he did. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, former U.S. Congressman from Florida, Chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Colonel West, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Dan and Amy. God bless.
Yep, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Nothing speaks louder about an auto dealer than a happy customer. And at Joe Cotton Ford, they have many.
Typically, the car buying process, I think a lot of people would agree that it's not a pleasant experience. You look forward to buying a car, but the actual having to negotiate and purchase a car can sometimes be an ugly thing. And the one thing that I've always had here in 19 years, every time we purchased a car, it's been a pleasant experience.
Another reason why folks keep coming back to Joe Cotton Ford. Joe Cotton Ford celebrates the holidays with great savings and financing. Be prepared for the winter with a new vehicle from Joe Cotton Ford. Get 0% up to 72 months on 2020 Explorers and Fusions. Joe Cotton Ford, Gary and North Avenue in Carroll Stream, or at joecottonford.com. joecottonford.com. Financing through Ford Credit Financing. Not all buyers will qualify. Restrictions apply. Take new retail delivery from Ford dealer stock by 12/30/20. See dealer for qualifications and complete details.
Hey guys, this year has made us all want to stay in bed, so why not dream a little dream with the one you love? Kickstart some romance this Christmas with the new Midnight Fantasy Pajamas from our good friends at Pajamagram, America's PJ experts for nearly 20 years. Seductive with a hint of lace, silky and smooth to the touch. Midnight Fantasy Pajamas are a dream come true for her and for you. She'll love the way they feel, and you'll both love the way they look. Warm her up and treat her to the ultimate fantasy with Midnight Fantasy Pajamas. Check them out at pajamagram.com. And right now, when you order today, you'll get a great deal, free gift packaging. That means you don't have to do a thing. She's missed out on a lot this year, so give her the romance she deserves. Get her Midnight Fantasy Pajamas and get your free gift packaging today before the deal disappears. Go to pajamagram.com, pajamagram.com, and tell them Dan and Amy sent you.
I'm Dan Proft.
And I'm Amy Jacobson. And if you're a small business owner or you make the marketing or advertising decisions for a business, then listen up. Once again, our annual Food for the Poor campaign is underway to raise money to feed families in Latin America who are suffering because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our friends at Food for the Poor are working with partners on the ground at feeding centers to provide emergency food relief. And here's how your business can be part of the solution.
Become a Food for the Poor business benefactor. Just make a $2,500 tax-deductible donation to Food for the Poor, and AM 560 will give you 40 60-second commercials to air here on AM 560 The Answer between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday to Friday at no additional cost to you.
To take advantage of this deal, just call Anjanette Natowski, 847-472-8951. Again, that's 847-472-8951, or go to 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
Being overweight might not be your fault. You may just have hormone imbalances. To lose that fat, NJ Diet uses your hair and saliva samples along with their bioenergetic scans to personalize natural solutions and supplements that will balance your hormones, where the side effect is weight loss. With NJ Diet, you will shed a contractually guaranteed 20 to 50 plus pounds in only 40 days. Then NJ Diet utilizes DNA testing to determine your ideal diet, workout regimen, and specific needs for essential vitamins, plus many more metabolic factors, so you can keep the weight off. NJ Diet is all natural.